Happiness, we're told, is ours at the push of a button. Technology promises to free us from drudgery and open up new possibilities for fun. But the science of happiness warns that machines could lead us to misery. We must educate the next generation on the risks and how to design happiness into the future. To many, human progress is measured by our increased ability to avoid doing the chores. Labour-saving devices have indeed transformed lifestyle. But the technological utopia where we have more free time to be with our friends, to have fun and to be happy, just doesn't seem to have happened. 50 years ago, a day might have been spent cooking and washing. Today, we might sit staring at a screen to earn the money to pay for the latest machine. Few of us would go back to a mangle, but all of that sophisticated wizardry hasn't added much happiness to our lives.
The labour-saving device, the thing that was to free up our time, hasn't done its job.
In fact, technology is increasingly filling our time. But the pleasure on offer is often solitary. Scientists know human contact is critical to happiness, but technology can push it out of our lives. Even online communities may actually be just another way to avoid social interaction in the real world.
Sometimes people say, is there a key to happiness? Say, no, there's no one magic key. Once you find that key, you're going to be happy. But rather, there's a recipe. There's a set of ingredients that has to be put together in the correct way in each person's life.
We now know some of those ingredients. Good social relationships, meaning, which may come from religion or it may come from a philosophy of life, having goals that are interesting to work on and which use your strengths and abilities. These are some of the ingredients for happiness.
Technology generally makes me quite happy, but there's one piece of technology that I really do not like, and that is instant messaging on your phone. Whereas in the past, you only had a landline, so people had to ring you at home and you actually had to be at home to pick up the phone. That was quite good because you could escape from people. Then you got mobile phones with SMS, text messaging and voicemails, which meant that people could still reach you even though your phone was switched off. And now we've got instant messaging, which is even worse because people can actually tell whether or not you've received their messages. And that's quite annoying.
I think I would say that generally technology has made me happier in the sense that it's made my life easier. I think, especially for women nowadays, when you're trying to work and maybe you have a house to run and a family, the fact that there are things to help you, technological sort of aids, I think that's good. And I would say that probably at home the thing which for me has made my life easiest is the dishwasher, because when I get home from work it's always quite stressful because I have to prepare food, cook food, clean up after food, and it takes up quite a lot of time. But since I've had the dishwasher, I find that at least that part of the evening, that sort of arguing with the children about who's doing the dishes, and that it used to take up quite a lot of time in the early evening, but now that I have a machine to do that for me, it means I can spend more time with my family.
I think that technology, especially technology that has made improved communication, has helped a lot, my social life, and it's comparing it with the times where you were sending letters with people that you met once or were living in other cities, and now I can communicate with friends from university, friends living anywhere in the world and chatting about like a movie I saw, about new music bands. So clearly that has made a difference in my life.
A type of technology that I think's improved my life and made me much happier is catch-up TV that you can watch whenever you're available. I don't really like just watching whatever's on TV, so being able to watch my favourite programmes when it's convenient to me has made my life much better, and just in a small way it's made me happier.
I think technology has been fantastic, making life much easier for everyone. But there are some negative aspects to it. And one of the things that I really find difficult to live with and work with is the computer. I've got a computer at work, I also have a computer at home, and I spend 6 or 8 hours a day in front of a computer. And at the end of the day, I talk to very few people. I just spend my time answering emails or doing work on the computer, looking at the computer, and not looking at anything else around me. And I find that very sad.
By 15 months, most boys seem to like playing with cars and machines, while most girls seem to prefer playing with dolls and so-called girly toys. But is this down to our genetic makeup, or is this learned behavior? To find out who's boss in the nature versus nurture debate, we're going to conduct a little experiment that puts the nurture argument to the test. Volunteers are each given a toddler to look after. How will the adults react when presented with a boy?
Hello, Caleb. But we've got some toys to play with if you want to play with some toys. Or maybe you want to play with a truck.
This volunteer has given Caleb a truck to play with. But what he doesn't know is that Caleb isn't a boy. She's really a little girl called Kaylee. In fact, when presented with a toddler, all our contributors gave trucks and trains to boys and pink fluffy toys to girls. What this experiment shows is how likely adults are to gender stereotype, and therefore how easily they can influence young children. But just because adults influence children doesn't necessarily mean that nature doesn't play a role. Here at Woburn Safari Park, a controversial experiment tried to prove that, and it still raises eyebrows today, many years after it was first carried out. Its creator was Dr. Melissa Hines.
Some years ago, I wanted to find out if I could find a group of children who hadn't been socialized to choose different toys and see if they still gravitated towards toys that were for their own sex. And try as I might, I couldn't find such children.
So Dr. Hines had a radical thought. Why not experiment with monkeys? Any preference they show must be down to nature. Keeper Laura helps us illustrate Melissa's experiment by setting out the toys for our unsuspecting monkeys. And it's not long before the nature argument appears to kick in, as Frank, one of the male monkeys, starts to play with the helicopter. And Blondie, a female monkey, walks straight past the truck to play with the doll. Although this is just an illustration, what we've seen closely matches what Dr. Hines discovered.
On the average, the male animals spent more time with the boys' toys than the female animals did, and the female animals spent more time with the girls' toys.
That was brilliant. Now, here's my question, though. I can understand why girl monkeys are going to want to play with dolls and the like, but what is it about things like helicopters, trucks, cars, that is so attracted to boy monkeys?
Yeah, good question. Well,
Yeah.
if this is part of our evolutionary heritage, then all this would have started before there were any vehicles around,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So what scientists think it's down to is that males are attracted to things with moving parts, like mechanical objects, and that they're attracted to motion, basically. And that's why you saw the monkeys there spinning the wheels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But where are we then with the kind of nature-nurture debate? I mean, is there a conclusive evidence either way?
Well, the classic scientific view was nurture. It plays a
Right.
huge part on your preferences like we saw in the film. But more recent research has shown that nature plays just as big a role. So I'm sorry to sit on the fence with this, but it actually is a very big combination of the two.
So I have 4 sisters, no brothers, 5 of us, and I'm in the middle. How did that influence my growing up? I actually think quite a bit. It's sexist to say, but you know, they expected more of me. They expected me to be more scientific, and they expected me to be less concerned about style and whatnot. But in a way, even the 2 older ones, they did look up to me. So in a way, I think I did get the best deal out of the 5 of us.
My parents raised us all, my brother and my sister and I, to be very independent. And I think they tried to teach us the same skills from a very young age. So from the age of 8 and 9, we were making our own lunches, my brother and I. He was doing his own laundry, I was doing my own laundry, and things like that. When there was household chores to do, we both had to go out and shovel the driveway together. There was no preference. I mean, I was a year and a half younger, but I didn't get any special treatment because I was a girl.
I'd say my mum and dad were probably more strict with my sister and I when we were growing up. I've got a younger sister and an older brother. My brother was allowed to stay out, you know, quite late, even on a weeknight when he had school the next day. And my sister and I, we had to be in by 8 or something like that. And this is when we were actually, you know, not that young, late teens, I'd say.
Well, I come from a family of 1 brother. My brother was the youngest of the 3, and then 2 sisters. And I'd say that there was a definite difference in my parents' attitude to my brother and my sister and myself. And you could see that partly in the fact that he used to get away with a lot more than we did, and we were constantly complaining and moaning and groaning about this, but it was denied. And then another way as well, which was quite interesting, which was my brother was put under a lot of pressure to achieve, and we weren't. It was fine, you know, if we did well, that was nice. But we never really had to be out there, because I think my parents sort of expected that basically we would grow up, we might go to university, and that was fine, but basically we'd get married and somebody else would support us, whereas my brother would be having to be the breadwinner.
I have 1 other sister. She's a little bit younger than I am, and I think our parents did try to bring us up the same, but because she was a girl, they did try to protect her a bit more than they did with me, because I'm a bit more streetwise, and I think they just looked out for her a bit more than myself.
It was me and my brother, and I never felt any particular pressure from my parents to be feminine, to be a typical girl, and I don't think my brother felt that way either. We just naturally seemed to fall into, I liked ballet and he liked football, and yeah, it was just a natural occurrence really, and so it was all very normal and natural. And then when I turned about 25, my grandfather in Portugal, it was his 90th birthday, and my parents were going to go over to celebrate his birthday, and they said, we have enough money to buy 1 ticket for one of you, and we think we'll take your brother because he's male and he's carrying the family name. And I was really surprised that all along that was how they felt about that there was a difference between the male and the female, really.
Well, I'm a southern Spaniard, and my parents were from southern Spain, and I grew up in a very typical Spanish family where my mother did everything, not just for my father, but for me and my brother. I didn't learn how to cook an egg or iron a shirt until I left home to go to university.
Has a picture ever defined an age as clearly as this? It was taken at the height of Victoria's reign, when Britain pushed the world through a revolution that changed every last detail of our lives. 200 years ago, Britain was the workshop of the world, but the only way you could move around it was on a horse. Brunel changed all that with extraordinary, bold and beautiful heavy engineering. The Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol is perhaps the best known example. Brunel put beauty into the beast of the Industrial Revolution. But he didn't just build bridges. He built railways, train stations, hospitals, sea walls and docks, and he built ships the like of which the world had never seen before. The Great Eastern, his final ship and greatest mistake, was the largest movable object man had ever created. Artists came to paint it, journalists to write about it, and for the first time, photographers to record this huge thing that was towering over the London skyline. To build the ship, Brunel went into business with a shipbuilder called John Scott Russell, but it was a stormy partnership. They quarrelled over who was in charge, and work fell behind. The finances spiralled out of control. Money was so tight, Brunel was reduced to listing the contents of his house, fearing he'd have to sell his silver to save his ship. The company directors became so desperate for cash, they even sold tickets for the launch of the ship. Thousands came, but the ship was too heavy to move. Brunel felt publicly humiliated. Finally, they got it afloat, and the problems really started. During trials, 6 men were killed when a funnel exploded, and on her maiden voyage, there were only 38 passengers. There was simply no demand for a ship this big. So the Great Eastern became a transatlantic cable layer. And then what? Where is it now? Well, it didn't sink. It didn't hit an iceberg like the Titanic. Its last days were spent as an advertising hoarding on the River Mersey. And then it was simply broken up for scrap. Brunel didn't even live to see the ship sail. 5 minutes after he posed for this last photograph, he collapsed from a stroke. He died 10 days later at the age of 53. The Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol was completed 5 years later as a tribute to Brunel.
I consider Nikola Tesla to be an unsung hero. He was an inventor and electrical engineer in the late 1800s and 1900s. He worked a lot with Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. And I think because of that, Thomas Edison tends to overshadow Nikola Tesla's achievements. Unfortunately, although Tesla made a lot of money from a lot of his inventions, because he developed a reputation in later years as a bit of a mad scientist, he ended up penniless and in the gutter. So unfortunately, I think we've all forgotten about his achievements since then.
A band that I think are an unsung heroes are a German band called Neu, spelled N-E-U ! They're a German band from the early 70s. And they experimented with, they were one of the first bands to experiment with electronic music. And they went, although they didn't have any hits at the time and very few people know them, they went on to influence some quite big names, so David Bowie, Iggy Pop, Simple Minds, people like that. And yeah, they were very innovative, and nowadays hardly anybody knows who they were.
I think someone I've known about for a very long time was Mary Seacole. I heard about her when I was a child, actually. I saw a television programme and I was amazed. I'd never come across her before. She lived during the Crimean War and she heard about the suffering of the British soldiers and decided to go out there and help. So she used her own money, set up a hotel very near to the front line and risked her life by going and bringing soldiers in and giving them medicine and food and took care of them. And when she came back to Britain, people forgot about her, really. She was like very much an unsung hero.
Somewhere in these waters lies the answer to one of the world's most beguiling mysteries. In an area of sea that has claimed hundreds of lives. Over the last century, 1,000 ships have been reported lost without a trace in the Bermuda Triangle.